preview. Welcome back to another faction focus with me, the Bone, and you, the Chef.
Me, the Chef.
It's us.
Yeah.
Yay. We swapped seats today.
It feels very weird.
We just like it. It's Friday here. We're changing things up. We just thought, why not?
Yeah.
Why not indeed?
Yeah.
So today the faction focus, as you would have seen already in the titles, is about the Space Wolves. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
The wolfy and the wolfy and the wolf.
And the wolves, it's wolf time.
Yeah, it
the
is
wolf time. It's on the way. So we're going to preface this just real quick as well. So this is based on the rules as they are.
Yeah.
Yes, there have been announcements what Marines will be getting in the future, but as they do not have it yet, we're not really going to be speculating on that until it actually happens.
It's not official.
It's not official.
And if we start talking about that, we'll actually be breaking a bunch of NDAs. So yes, we can't do that.
Can't do it at all.
It's not allowed.
So we're not going to be doing any of that sort of stuff. But also what's great about this series and how it's designed is once, the new codex has come out, we can revisit them and talk more in depth about it then. Mm-hmm. So based on where we're at the moment, let's talk about the good. So first of all, Space Wolves are Space Marines.
Yeah.
They are Astartes, so that just means they're good.
Yeah.
In general. So let's put a line under that. We know that, so that's fine. But let's talk about what makes the Space Wolves in particular good. There are a few units which I think are real winners, given for points and just actually their rules. First of all, Ragnar. Now that he's been Primarisified, is really good. Yeah. Is he too good? Yeah. Potentially, but he's really good. I mean, I think he's like 10 attacks base with Shock Assault or 9 attacks base.
It's something crazy.
Because
doesn't he always count as free?
Yeah, he gets +3.
Yeah.
So I think it's 10 because I think he's 7 base anyway. With his Frost Claw, with the Frost Fang,
yeah.
Thank you. With Frost Fang, I mean, it's a Strength 6 weapon, -4 flat 2 damage.
Yeah, which is great.
You put Touch of the Wild on there. From turn 3, 6s are doing extra hits. He's hitting on 2s. He's giving reroll charges. He's got reroll 1s in there. He's got a 4-up invulnerable.
So much.
He's got so much going on for him.
Now, I said he was an ugly because he's just so good.
Yeah.
But
like
for a Space Wolf player, you should be like,
yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
If you don't have him in your army,
and you're running Primaris, you should probably have him. You should probably have him anyway. Quite frankly, he's just that good. Yeah, he's just a cheap little beat stick.
Yeah.
For what he does.
Yeah, for his points, he's just so good. One thing I do have a little bit of sad news to share with you today. You may not see any Space Wolves battle reports for a while because Fletcher broke into the studio in the middle of the night and he took his army back.
So inconsiderate.
It's not like, I'd made it very clear he wasn't getting it back, but then he decided to literally steal my army from me and claim it as his, when clearly he'd given that to me. So
it was a gift. You can't take a gift back.
Yeah! Fletcher!
There's no receipts.
There's no receipts. But there might be a receipt of
pain.
Vengeance, coming your way, Fletcher. We are looking into sorting something out around that, but that is down the line at the moment. So
patience, young Padawans.
Patience, we will get there. There's much to do, but it's been a good run with them. I've really enjoyed using them. I have a very specific Space Wolves army, which I might bring out, but it doesn't really work, especially in 9th, actually. It just wouldn't work at all, so...
could be fun.
Could be.
But yeah.
Yeah, we'll
touch
have
on those.
That's a down the line problem anyway. But I just wanted to break the news to you.
As gently as possible?
As gently as possible. So that's why I opened with Ragnar. It's like, great news, but you know what I mean? Yeah. That's often what my parents would do, and it's made me the man I am today.
What lead in with Ragnar?
No, yes, exactly. It's just behead some heretics, and they'd be like, oh, and by the way,
you got to go to school tomorrow.
You got to go to school tomorrow. Yeah, there was other things I could have. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, anyway, let's move on. Let's move on swiftly. Another character I think that is good is Bjorn. Don't be hasty. oh, I'm so hasty. He's good. He's good for what he does. You can't target him for one, which is good because he's a character. He's got that las cannon. He's hitting on 2s. He's great in combat. You get that additional CP, which isn't to be sniffed at. Yeah. He gives you the reroll 1s, and he ignores wounds on 5s. Cool. Do you know what I mean?
He's super tough for what he does. He gives you that utility as well as, I mean, an on-target. I mean, we know, like, you know, the Chaplain Dread list was doing the rounds a few months ago. You know, sort of towards the end of 8th as well. You know, the untargetable BS2 twin las cannons are really good. Yeah. Now you've got that with a character that's great in combat on top of that.
Yeah.
By virtue of being a Space Wolf, and is providing the auras.
Yeah.
And the CP is just a nice little cherry.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of don't, you almost look at it and you go like, oh, an extra CP, do I really need that? Space Wolves can.
Yeah.
They really can burn through them.
To
do some of their combos. So yeah, an extra one, as you say, not to be sniffed at.
No.
Like, at all.
No. So I think he's good. I think he's very good. Another good unit, I think Wolf and Dreads are really good now. For their points and what they can do, they're really good. They've got rerollable charges built into them. You give them the sword and you keep them with the claw. And then on the charge, I think it's like 5 attacks at strength 10 minus. It's either -3 or -4, and then it's flat 3 damage. Yeah. It's got a heavy flamer in there. It's got the storm bolters and a 4-up invulnerable because you've got the shields. I just think that they're for their points, they're a really good unit.
Yeah, because you kind of, sure, they don't have any shooting, but turn 1, you're just going to advance. You're going to advance them.
Yeah.
And then you go, next turn, I'm going to charge you.
Yeah, exactly. With my rerollable charge.
Yeah. So deal with me.
Yeah.
And any vehicle with a 4-up inburn is a nightmare to deal with.
Yeah,
exactly. Because those kinds of vehicles, you know, that's, you know, a Dread, you'll kind of go, yeah, I'll pump a couple of las cannons into it, and I don't need to worry about it anymore. But actually now, that 50-50 can, I mean, yeah, it's only 50-50, but that's what you've got. You see, there you go. Bjorn's CP is being done on one of his pals, keeping him alive.
Keeping him alive. Yeah. Perfect. It's all working out. But yeah, I think they're an incredible unit, and yeah, I would look at investing in some of them if I were you. Another good unit, and this is just kind of good for Space Marines in general, is Impulsors. Yeah, I mean, they're an incredible transport. The fact that you can disembark afterwards as well to get that extra movement if you need to, in a game which is all about board control and holding objectives. I just think they're really good. You give them that 4-up invulnerable. They're quite hard to shift off objectives as well, which is nice. Especially now we've got things like Assault Intercessors, which are a thing. And if you're looking at rocking around a list like that with Ragnar, or even if you just want to keep your normal Intercessors in there and put that Thunderhammer on your, so you've got the shooting as well. I wrote a list a while ago, which was like an Impulsor spam list with characters and stuff, and everyone's like a bit, I don't know, or some people like, this is really strong. It's almost like I had foresight of what was going to happen. I didn't, but now that I kind of look back on it, like that list actually with a couple of little tweaks is very strong.
Yeah, and I think that ties in with, you know, sort of board control in general being super key for 9th edition.
Yeah.
And Space Wolves kind of being a combat-centric army, you're wanting to put the pressure on, and it being a smaller board with the speed of the Impulsors as well.
Yeah.
You can really sort of play to the Space Wolf strengths by using it. Because again, you kind of go, I'm super fast, I'm in your grill. I can't charge after doing that extra move out of it, but now you've got to deal with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Alongside all the other things that you've got to deal with.
They become, they're an incredible unit, and especially with armies like Space Wolves, I think they can be used very potently. And like you were saying, like, I think just the board size in general is another good thing, because you are, when I've been playing the Space Wolves, and you know, I haven't had like a lot of we had a very specific army, and I haven't had a lot of the new toys that I'd really like to play around with,
like the Impulsors and
Wolf and Dreads and all that sort of stuff. But like, you're closing the gap really quickly now, and there are some deployments. You're probably not going to get a turn 1 charge, but it's almost guaranteed if you've got the right units that you're getting that turn 2 charge.
Yeah.
So whatever your opponent doesn't clear off is in their lines, and that's where Space Wolves want to be, and it becomes quite a problem. Quite frankly, it becomes quite a problem. Like, I've been kind of using the Razorbacks to flip over, but I would be using Impulses instead of. It does mean you lose a little bit of anti-infantry, but
if you've got a bunch of intercessors inside that are going to jump out and throw out a whole hail of bolter fire,
it doesn't really matter.
You run them with auto bolt rifles, so you can advance and still shoot. You're taking the penalty, but you'll kind of go, it's fine.
Yeah.
Or you run them with bolt rifles and you just do that next turn, or you're running them as assault intercessors, you just keeping them inside, and then you go,
and then you go, thank you for playing.
So you don't really miss that amount of anti-horde. Like, it's great to have, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but
you can get it from somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that just comes down to the list building phase there, so that's fine. I think characters are still, in general, there are some, we'll go into that in the bad, but I think, like, you know, your Wolf Lords are still really solid. In fact, I think they're really good. You know, if you put Touch of the Wild on them with the Thunder Hammers, and, you know, they're hitting on 2s and stuff, and then you play Thousand Suns and you do 17 hits because from 5 attacks, and, you know, stuff like that. Like, they can be incredibly powerful, and when you use them correctly, they can actually turn a game on its head quite quickly.
Oh, yeah.
I like Wolfguard Battle Leaders are the same. So yeah, I think just the characters, more of the standard characters, other than the named ones we've mentioned, are good. I think they're really good. There's other things that are good as well, but for me, those are the good things that have kind of stood out for us. As always, let us know what you think is really good. What are you doing with your Space Wolves at the moment? But shall we move on to the bad?
Yep. There is some.
Even
in a Space Marine army.
Yes,
it does happen, guys.
It does. So we're gonna talk about that in just a sec. Right. Let's get stuck into the bad. I think
Prospero burnt.
Prospero got. Look, at the time, we thought we were doing the right thing. We did. We thought, you know, it was excessive. I understand that. So speaking of psychers...
I didn't even intend this. I was just being a meme.
I don't think that the psychers for the Space Wolves are that good. I think, you know, the only reason really that I would take a psyker in Space Wolves, because it's not, I mean, Psychic is always all right, don't get me wrong, but it's not that they're, the only reason I would take one is because of that stratagem that you can do to get the -1 to hit bubble, which is 3 CP, which is also bad. That's bad. So that's the only reason I would probably take a Psyker at the moment. I think their Psychic output isn't great. They've got a couple of buffing powers which are all right, but, you know, it's stuff like improving saves and things like that, but it's not an invulnerable saves, and it's just...
Yeah, I mean, I think they have their uses. I do think they have their uses. However, I think that you can kind of... You could argue, all right, well, what about taking Psychers, you know, taking a Psyker for Deny, you know, to get rid of things like, you know, a Crucial Doom or a Defect. Well, you've got a stratagem to give someone a
stratagem to do that with one of your characters anyway.
And you've also got one of the... Is it one of the relics in Saga of the Beast? Is like a -2 bubble to casting or something?
Yeah, you've pipped me on that one. Maybe.
I think so.
That's another thing, because I'll only ever take, you know, Armor of Rust, because...
But if that's something that you're concerned about, you have ways of dealing with Psychers, and you kind of go, I can kind of live with it.
And it also means that a Bore the Witch is...
off the table if you take one.
Yeah, take one.
You know, in some games you'll get like, you might be able to get like 10 points from it from Psychers. In other games you'll be like, yeah, I'm going to max this.
Yeah.
And it'll be easy for me to max this.
Easy to do.
You know, so it's kind of, you know, that's obviously not a guarantee, but when your own Psychers are kind of meh-ish, you know, someone like Eldar turning around and going, oh yeah, but if I don't have a Psyker, I can take a Bore the Witch. Yeah, but you don't get Guide and Doom.
Yeah.
You know, or someone, or like with I mean, obviously, Thousand Sons of Grey Knights don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You know, or with Marines, you can, like, in general, you can probably kind of go, I don't really mind not having the Librarius powers.
Yes, it's not great.
Yeah.
Like, I don't just sit there and go, oh, I need that
power.
I look at it and go, that's an HQ slot, which I could put something else in, which is going to be more effective.
I could just have a combat character who's just going to go and smash up the Psyker anyway, and I don't need to worry about denying it ever again.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's why they're bad, because there's no real desire, in my opinion, to take them.
Yeah.
Let me know what you think. On to characters. So I think characters in general are in a good spot, but there are just some characters which you're just never going to see. And that's a shame, because some of them are quite cool.
And it's thematic for the Space Wolves, because obviously, you know, so much of their fluff and their own, you know, storylines are based upon the epic deeds and sagas of their characters.
Exactly.
You know, like these noble lords and, you know, like great warriors and stuff. And it's kind of cool that the name characters aren't seeing a lot of use, because, you know, from, like, you know, the narrative player in me is going, that's awesome, because it means I can write my own saga for my own character.
Yeah.
But the flip side of it is, but then why are these epic heroes not good?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
it's kind of...
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, is that Canis Wolfbane, or I think is how you say it. Like, you'll never see him. Santa Claus, you'll never see him.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe just for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, so when you kind of look at all that sort of stuff and you just kind of go, it is bad, because they're kind of like a dead model, and there's absolutely no need for them. And if you're gonna, I guess for me, if you're gonna have these named characters which have fluff and all these sorts of great things in there, then you need to make them worth taking, or at least considerable. Whereas there's about 5 or 6 pages in the codex of characters where you just look at it and go, Wolflord will do it better for cheaper. You know, Ragnar does it better than everyone for cheaper. And so you kind of sit there and go, meh. So I think that's bad. I think that's a bad thing.
It's sort of like the opposite problem of Ahriman in the Thousand Sons back in the 8th edition, when the points were closer between him and the Exalted Sorcerers. So back then it was kind of like, I could take an Exalted Sorcerer, or I could spend like 20-ish points more for Ahriman, who gets to cast an additional power, gets to deny an additional power, and gets a +1 to cast to boot, and is flat 3 damage in combat for like 20 points more. And you kind of go, that's a no-brainer. Whereas what you've just said there, like, he's good, but a Wolflord could just do the same thing. Like, you know, oh, you want combat? A Wolflord could do it better.
Yeah.
Like, outside of Ragnar and Bjorn, I agree. I think the special characters. And if you are really wanting to run a Psyker, you probably would run Nigel.
Yeah.
Because I think he can cast an extra power.
Yeah.
I think.
Maybe. Nige. But, you know, I could never run Nige because of Nigel Big Tooth.
Yeah. But, like, you know, like, Logan Grimnar's cool, but if you want a guy on Terminator armor that's going to be a combat beast, just, you know, you've got a Wolflord for that.
Yeah.
The advantage that he does have is, he's a chapter master, so you're re-rolling failed hits.
Mm-hmm.
That has its own issues. But... yeah, I agree. I think the name characters do feel a little bit lackluster.
Yeah.
Just because, there's nothing that they do that's all that amazing.
No.
In my opinion.
No.
Again, there might be something that we're drastically
that I've
missing.
missed. I was reading through it again this morning, but like if I've missed, if you go, Bebo, listen, you missed out on this thing.
Let me tell you about.
Let me tell you about Nigel and his friends. I'm like, please, I'm ready for story time. This sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, those are the bad things that really kind of stick out for me. There are some other things that are I think a lot more of it falls into ugly now with Space Wolves than bad, which is what we're going to talk about next. So why don't we do that? Let's move on to ugly. We'll be back with our ugly selves in a moment.
It's a bit harsh.
Impossible. Okay, here we are. Not being ugly, we're being beautiful. But the Space Wolves are being a little bit ugly in this moment. Chef, why don't you kick us off?
Well, So I mean, and it's an ugly because it kind of ties in with our very first point in good, in that they're Marines.
Yeah.
Right. We know that Marines are generally pretty good. Some might even say they're pretty broken. And here's the issue with the Space Wolves is because they're generally quite a combat-centric army, a lot of their strats revolve around it, their chapter tactics revolve around it, a lot of their rules revolve around it. If you want to build an efficient Marine list, and this is just coming from like a competitive standpoint here, guys, you're probably better off not using Space Wolves at all.
Yeah.
And using a chapter that's going to kind of benefit your more efficient and effective units, which are predominantly shooting. Now, that is not to say that combat doesn't have a place, because it absolutely does. And I will maintain that till the day that I die.
Yes.
That this is not a shooting edition, and combat is very much alive.
Yes.
However, if you're running pure, like, number crunchy efficiency, especially with Marines, your rerolls and all that sort of stuff are better served by being essentially not Space Wolves.
Yeah.
One, so you can get Chapter Master without needing to take a special character who's 200 something points.
Yep.
And two, because while Space Wolves can run all of those things, you know, like Eradicators and Aggressors, they can run all those things and they can run them well, but they need to run them. You'd run Aggressors kind of like, I'm going to run them forward, I'm going to shoot once, and then I'm going to get into charge and punch, which is cool. But is it effective compared to going, I'm going to be Salamanders, plonking down, but I'm actually not Salamanders. I'm a Salamander Successor with an extra range and Master Artisans and doing the same thing and just sitting there and rolling 500 dice every turn? No. And that's ugly because it's a shame, because Space Wolves are kind of cool. You know, I do prefer the 30k version with their actual Vikings rather than Wolfy boys riding on wolves with their wolf belts and their wolf armor.
Sure.
Wolfy, wolf, wolf, wolf.
Sure.
But
we're working towards the wolf time.
Well, I know. But,
Yeah, but you know.
But it's a pity that you've got this army that essentially, if you know, another sort of, that's a sub-faction of an army that doesn't do it as well, so you have to be combat-centric to kind of make the most of it.
Yes.
Again, that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. It's just how the army is
It's
built.
just how the army is built, but it's ugly because if that's how you want to play your game, you're never even going to look at Space Wolves, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and
I
could
agree.
be wrong. I could be wrong. I'm sure someone would be like, but a Space Wolves won the tournament in the last few weeks. Yep, were they using everything was OBSEC though? I don't know. You know, and someone could quite easily use a Space Wolf army and do extremely well with it. I'll be interested to see, though, if that Space Wolf army was built as a Space Wolf army or if it just happened to be a Marine army that was using some of the Space Wolf rules in an interesting way. Hence why it's ugly, because for me, I'm not seeing it, and that's just an oddity for me. Yeah.
It's a similar thing with Blood Angels.
Yes,
yeah.
I agree.
And so, yeah, if if you're into combat, great. Then you know this ugly point. You're probably like, this sounds silly, but it is an interesting point. Whereas they are Space Marines, but they're kind of not. So there's this weird thing. But yeah, I agree with that. Now, one thing as well that I think is very ugly. Well, there's two units in particular that I think are ugly. We'll start with the Thunderwolves. Okay. Thunderwolf Cavalry. I think that they are an ugly unit. They're not super expensive with the loadout.
I can hear the clatter of keyboard.
They're not super expensive, but they're not. I mean, I think a unit of 6 works out at just over 300 points from memory, or a bit over 300 points. So it is a big point sink. I think for me, they're not quite fast enough to be effective still. Even with the smaller boards and stuff, you're gonna get you may still get them into combat turn 2, but it can sort of be closer to turn 3, especially on that first turn. If you get a bad roll on your advance, or you've got to go over craters and stuff like that, it can really slow them down. They are decently survivable, but often they're going to be up the front of your army. So if you come up against any sort of psychic ability, it's just going to go through those storm shields, and you are going to lose 1, 2, maybe 3 of them, and there's nothing you can do about that. So they just still can't get across the board fast enough for me. Why? So that's kind of the bad side of it. Where they're good is if you can make them survive, and if they do get across the board, then they wreck face. The wolves themselves are excellent at chewing through infantry. They're now also really good at helping take down heavier targets because you can use
it's the stratagem, but I can't remember what it's
I can't
called.
remember.
Yeah.
Something bite.
Death bite or
death
something.
Death grip bite, I think is it. And you can make them damage 2, which is really, really good, right? So they're really good. You're always running, I'm always running them with Thunder Hammers personally, and you're still going to be hitting them 3s with that because of your +1, because you're Space Wolves. They are incredibly good once they get there. The problem is getting them there. If they were able to, if there was a stratagem that would allow you to advance and charge with them, then I would be a lot more on board with it.
We were so surprised there wasn't one.
I was so surprised there wasn't one. I was just like, obviously they're going to get that. They didn't, and fair enough. That's just how it went. But so for me, they're really good, but they're also really bad. I often will take them just because I think it's cool. But if I'm looking really competitively at Space Wolves, I don't think they're a competitive choice because they're too swingy. So that's how I feel about the Thunderwolves. And I feel a similar way about the Wolfen. Wolfen are ugly for a lot of reasons. They're mutated wolf people. That is not...
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, they're not, that's not a nice look. No. But like aesthetics aside, Wolfen can flip a game on its head and win you a game in a turn, right? Their damage output is absolutely insane. Their survivability is pretty good. And there's a lot of good about the Wolfen, but they suffer from a similar problem, which is getting them there. You can foot slog them, but they become public enemy
target number 1.
Yeah, exactly, right. So and the way to get rid of Wolfen, and the same with Thunderwolves. Thunderwolves is worse than this because there are ways around this with Wolfen, which I will get to in a moment, which is part of the same point. But high rate of firepower firing into Wolfen, that's it. You're going to lose. You're just going to lose them. So you're in this interesting spot. What do I now need to do to make sure that the Wolfen are guaranteed to get over there pretty much intact? You have to invest in a transport. The only transports that can do this really are Land Raiders. I've spoken about what I think about Land Raiders in general. I just think they're terrible. I don't rate them at all. Or you can take a flyer. Now, I don't mind the Stormwolf because the Stormwolf actually...
it's got some good firepower as well.
It's got some good firepower. It's got a bunch of wounds. It's got the inbuilt -1 because it's flying. You can also like blow it up if you want to for a C. I think 2 CP, and it is D6 damage when it goes off. Or it can fire one of its weapons, when it dies. But blow it up, obviously, blow it up. So it's a fine thing. It's expensive though. It's expensive, and the thing is, if I wasn't transporting Wolfen, I wouldn't take it as just a gunboat because of its cost. I would probably invest maybe even in like Longfangs and stuff like that instead of, because they've got all their own rules, like inbuilt rerolls and stuff like that, and then there's stratagems which can make them even better. They're a bit more squishy, but now you can, we can hide them and all that sort of thing. I would prefer to have something like that. Well, that's where I would spend my points, and you actually get probably a bit more firepower for the points. I haven't crunched that though, so I may be wrong there. So that's kind of where I sit with the Wolfen. They're incredible, and they're such a distraction as well. But the amount of games that I have played where I don't go first, or I do, I don't go first. So then all of the firepower goes into the Stormwolf. The Wolfen are suddenly on the ground in my deployment zone. They're probably being shot at as well, depending on how quickly their Stormwolf was brought down. And you've spent a quarter to a third of your points on this one thing, and it really affects the other army. Again, Space Wolves, like Blood Angels, like we go into Chaos, Thousand Suns, like Death Guard are super elite armies, and you pay premiums for them because the thing is, when you get to combat, or when whatever army you're in, it does their thing, it is incredibly effective, and it can win you a game. But it's so expensive that the rest of your army starts to fall apart. And what you actually start sacrificing is things like board control, which, as we know, is key in ninth, and the ability to score points. So it's super ugly. The thing is, I'm not sure what the answer is, because I don't want to suddenly be like, and the same with Thunderwolves, I don't suddenly want to be like, oh,
they're 30 points each.
Yeah, they're 30 points each, and instead of moving 10, they move 15. Like, I'm not saying that that's what needs to happen. I don't know the answer. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's an interesting one. And they are, especially with like Thunderwolf Cavalry and Wolfen, are now very iconic with the Space Wolves, like very iconic. So you kind of sit there and go like,
I want to run them because they're cool.
But also, are there more efficient points choices that will serve me better throughout the game? And I kind of look at it and go, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. So that's why they're ugly.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think in addition with the Wolfen, and it's what you said earlier, they can win you the game, and they can swing, but they can swing it so hard, because even when they make it into combat, and the reason why you want to kill them with psychic and shooting is because even if you kill them in combat, they attack you again. So on the charge, they attack you, and then if you kill one, they attack you, and you just kind of go, I'm just going to lose, and then you can attack again with a stratagem. So you just kind of go, I'm just going to lose whatever they've touched. And again, a good player can kind of screen out as best as they can and all that sort of stuff. I think the other issue with the Wolfen, and it's the same with the Thunderwolves, is they're so mono build. If you don't run them with a Storm Shield, they die. And they die horribly. Of course, they're cheaper. But not by much.
No.
And they just die horrifically quickly without that invuln. So it's kind of like, you have to run them like they are. And then because of the way that you've run them, and so with Wolfen especially, they can't take like, a wolf claw and a shield. It has to be a shield and a hammer. It has to be. So now all of a sudden, you've gone from however many points they are basic, which you look at it and you go, that's pretty reasonable for what they can do. Obviously, transport notwithstanding. Now all of a sudden you're adding like a whole bunch of extra points, and that's what pushes them into the ludicrously expensive bit. And because they're so mono build, if you try and run them without it, they die horribly, and you just kind of go, oh, that was a waste. If you build them with it, and they're countered and they die horribly, it's even more of a waste.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's almost like, despite the fact of how good they are, you almost can't win with them. Not like, I don't mean like win as in, like the game, or, if you're taking them, you're going to lose. I think it's more like, you can't, there's no sort of middle ground with them. You've got to go for, it's either the one extreme where I'm going to run them completely bare bones as a distraction. And if they die, they die. But there's other things which can do that for much cheaper. Or you run them hyper expensive, and they take up a huge amount of your army. Like there's no give with them.
There's no give with them.
Which is a shame.
It feels like your army has to support this one unit. Now I've seen some people who they say, no, what I do is I don't use a transport, and I just run 3 blobs of them up the board and stuff. And look,
which is pretty crazy.
Smaller board sizes could work, and maybe that's the way to run them. I don't know, but at this stage, for me, they're very ugly. How are you running your Wolfen? Tell me. I'd like to hear. Those are the big things that stand out for me as ugly.
They're the big two, and I think they kind of that those two, in essence, would cover a lot of what other smaller ugly bits are. Things like Blood Claws are good, Assault Intercessors are better. Terminators are good, Aggressors are kind of better. And it's just general sort of things like that. If you're going for that combat sort of element, there could potentially be better things. But I think overall the army is in a very, very good spot. I mean, as with most armies that have gone into 9th edition, the Psychic Awakening is kind of the key thing there.
Yeah, 100%.
More so than perhaps points. Again, I mean, I think points-wise they've done reasonably okay.
Yeah, it wasn't huge.
It wasn't huge in comparison to some other armies. It wasn't quite, you know, on the Custodes or Harlequins level of we've not changed.
Yeah.
You know, they've done what Marines have done, which is we've gone up, but we were already really good and efficient anyway.
Yeah.
So going up a little bit more is probably justified.
Yeah, like when I'm running when I was running the Fletcher's army, like you would look at it and you go, oh, yeah, this is about right.
Do I still have all of this stuff in 2,000 points?
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy.
Go, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. So yeah, I mean, points wise, they're good.
Yeah.
There's a lot more benefits to them now. Look, are they top table worthy? Maybe.
I think someone in the hands of a very, very skilled player who can use all of their tricks and the nuances of them, I think they would definitely be top table.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that someone did use them in a recent tournament a few weeks back, and this was when the OBSEC was, you know, for everything in the army, which was an obvious mistake. And the guy even said, I said to the TOs, I'm not going to run it like that because it's stupid. So fair play.
Well done.
And he I think he won.
Wow.
But I can't remember what the list was. So if you're a fan, let us know. Or if you know who I'm talking about, let us know.
Yeah, because
I'd be really interested to see.
I'm really interested.
You know, but that's what I mean is, you know, but again, that kind of goes back to the beginning bit of the ugly section, which is I would be very interested to see if they won because it was a Space Wolf list or if they won because it was a Marine list with a little sprinkling of wolves in there.
Yeah. We'll see.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But I think overall, yeah, they get a good stamp from me.
I agree. Same. All right, guys. Well, look, let us know what you think in the comments. As always, we do try and reply to as many as possible, but if we miss you, know that we do read them. So I'm finding these faction focuses really interesting because just seeing what everyone else thinks about it, their ideas, your takeaways. Lots
of stuff we miss as well.
Lots of stuff we miss, yeah, you know, it happens. So thank you again. We've got more of these faction focuses coming. If you want to see all of them in their entirety, we do have more over on tabletoptactics.tv. Check it out if you are so inclined. Either way, we will see you very soon. This has been me, the Bone, and you, the Chef, and you are bosses, and we will hang out again.
Digitally, over the internet. Very good.
It's nice.
It's a nice time.
Yeah.